When I arrived at the meeting point for the family trip, I only found my 5 nieces and nephews. My sister texted me, "We went to New York. You take care of the kids." I called Child Protective Services. When they came back, a surprise was waiting for them that they would never forget. I'm Tom, 34, a preschool teacher in Washington, D.C. I earn about $4,000 a month, enough to live comfortably and even help my family when they need it. I've always been the one there for everyone, especially my sister Lisa and brother Mark. They have 5 kids: Emma, 10, Noah, 8, Sophie, 7, Liam, 5, and Ava, 3. I love them like they're my own, but Lisa and Mark are disastrous parents. Every weekend, I end up watching kids because they go partying or who knows where. I never complain much. I thought that's what family does. But the sadness on those kids' faces when their parents ditched them breaks my heart. It all started a couple of months ago when my family began talking about a trip to New York. The idea came up during a dinner at my parents' house, one of those rare times we're all together. Lisa was super excited, talking about how we could walk around the city, eat great food, see tall buildings, and maybe visit a famous park. Mark chimed in, saying the kids would have a blast running around. Even my parents, who rarely travel, seemed thrilled. I listened half doubting, because organizing a trip like that isn't cheap, and I knew they'd eventually ask me for help. I wasn't wrong. A couple of weeks later, Lisa showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning. She brought coffee and pastries, like she was trying to butter me up. She sat on the couch and started talking about the trip. "Tom, this is going to be special. All of us together, like when we were kids. Imagine the kids seeing the city. It'll be magical." She told me they'd already looked at flights and hotels, but needed a financial push. "You work so hard with those little ones at preschool. You deserve a break. Just help with part of it, and we'll handle the rest." She showed me a budget on her phone. Flights, hotel, food, tickets to places. It all added up to about $15,000 for everyone. "If you put in $10,000, we'll cover the rest," she said. $10,000 was nearly all my savings. I'd been saving for years, thinking about buying a new car or putting a down payment on an apartment. But Lisa kept talking, saying it would be a lifelong memory, that the kids would talk about this trip for years. She even mentioned it would be good for me, since I'm always taking care of others. "For once, let us handle everything," she said. Mark called me that same night, reinforcing the idea. "Come on, brother, it'll be fun." They convinced me. I thought maybe, just this once, Lisa and Mark would act like decent parents, and the trip could bring us closer. So, a few days later, I transferred $10,000 to Lisa, trusting she'd buy the tickets and book the hotel. The weeks flew by. Lisa sent me occasional texts saying she'd booked the flights, that the hotel was near downtown, that everything was set. She even asked me to bring a backpack with stuff for the kids, like snacks or small toys for playing. The day of the trip arrived, a sunny Saturday in July. I woke up at 4 a.m., checked my suitcase 3 times, and got to the airport at 6 a.m. sharp, looking for my family in the departures area. But I didn't see them. I walked back and forth, thinking maybe they were at another gate or delayed. After 20 minutes, I started to worry. Then I saw them, my 5 nephews, alone, sitting on some chairs. Emma was holding Ava, who was crying softly. Liam's face was red, like he'd been crying hard. Noah and Sophie stared at the floor, clutching their backpacks. I ran over. "What's going on? Where's your mom?" Emma looked at me with teary eyes. "They left, Uncle. They said you'd take care of us." It felt like I'd been punched. I pulled out my phone and texted Lisa. "Where are you?" "The kids are alone." Her reply came quickly, cold. "We went to New York." "You love those kids so much. You deal with them. Don't ruin my trip." I couldn't believe it. I texted again. "Lisa, they're crying. Don't do this to them." She replied, "Don't bother me. I'm on the plane." Rage surged through me. It wasn't just about the money they'd tricked me out of. It was about abandoning their kids like they didn't matter. I looked at Emma, trying to be strong, and Ava, clinging to her sister. I couldn't let this slide. I told the kids, "Come on, we're going to my place." I loaded them into my car, silent and sad. At my apartment, I gave them juice and cookies. Emma tried to calm Ava, but she looked drained. I stepped into the kitchen and called Child Protective Services. I told them about the airport, the texts, and how Lisa and Mark always dumped the kids on me to go have fun. The person I spoke to said was serious and they'd investigate. But for now, I should care for kids. I called the police and reported child abandonment, sending them Lisa's texts and explaining the money. I checked my phone and found old messages from Lisa and Mark asking me to watch the kids on weekends, never saying thank you. I sent all of it to CPS and the police. Emma came up and asked, "Uncle, are Mom and Dad going to get in trouble?" I hugged her. "I just want you guys to be okay." She nodded, worried. That night, I settled the kids in my place and didn't sleep. I was furious and hurt. Lisa and Mark had deceived me and hurt their kids. The next day, I talked to a lawyer friend, Rachel. When I told her, she was shocked. "Tom, this is abandonment. We can go for criminal charges and temporary custody for you, but it'll be tough." I told her I was all in. The next 2 weeks were intense. I took the kids to the preschool where I work. The other kids loved them, which distracted them. CPS interviewed them. Emma said her mom sometimes didn't give them breakfast, and Noah said Mark left them alone at home for hours. The social worker told me they had a strong case. I gave the police Lisa and Mark's travel details. They'd be back in 2 weeks, and I wanted them to face the consequences. Rachel helped me file for emergency custody, and we set a court date for 3 weeks out. Every night, I saw the pain on the kids' faces. I swore to protect them. I was exhausted but wouldn't give up. The kids came first, even though it hurt what my family had done. I'd given them everything, and this was how they repaid me. But Emma, Noah, Sophie, Liam, and Ava deserved better, and I'd give it to them. The police had an arrest warrant ready. I gave them the exact itinerary, the hotel in New York, the return flight number, and arrival time. They'd be back in Washington in 2 days, a Monday morning. "We'll be waiting for them," said Officer Lopez, who was handling the case. I just wanted them to face the consequences, not for revenge, but for the kids. Rachel and I kept gathering evidence. Texts where Lisa and Mark asked me to watch the kids on weekends, Emma's statements about her mom forgetting breakfast, times Mark left them alone. It all looked bad for them. On Monday, I left the kids with my neighbor Maria and went to the airport with Lopez. Rachel said I didn't need to be there, but I had to see it with my own eyes. We arrived early, and I stood in a corner while Lopez and another officer positioned themselves near the exit. When the flight landed, I saw Lisa and Mark walk out with their suitcases, chatting like nothing was wrong. Lisa was even laughing, as if she hadn't abandoned her kids. Lopez approached, showed his badge, and read them their rights. Lisa froze, and Mark started yelling, "What is this?" "Tom, you did this." They were put in a patrol car as people stared. I didn't feel joy, just emptiness. This wasn't what I wanted, but it had to happen. At the station, they were charged with child abandonment, neglect, and abuse. They weren't jailed that night, but were banned from leaving the country and given a court date in 3 weeks. Rachel was pleased. "This is a big step, Tom. With the evidence we have, they can't defend themselves." But I couldn't relax. The kids were hurt, and though they were with me, I knew this would mark them forever. The next few weeks were tense. Lisa and Mark kept texting me. At first, it was venomous. "Lisa, how could you do this to us? You're a traitor." "Mark, you choose those brats over your own blood? You're not my brother." But later, their texts became desperate. "Lisa, Tom, please, let's talk. Don't let them put us in jail." "Mark, we're family. Don't do this." I didn't reply once. Rachel had told me not to, that every message was more evidence of their neglect. "They're digging their own grave," she said, saving everything for court. I tried to keep a routine for the kids. I took them to preschool, where my students loved them. Emma helped with Ava, but looked exhausted from always being the big sister. Noah and Sophie played, but sometimes sat quietly, staring into space. Liam stuck to me, asking for stories, and Ava cried for her mom almost every night. I did what I could, bought them ice cream, put on movies, read bedtime stories, but it wasn't enough. I knew they needed real help, maybe a psychologist, but first I had to get through the trial. A week before the court date, I was at preschool teaching a class about animals. The kids were painting elephants and giraffes, laughing, when the principal, Mrs. Harris, walked in with a girl who wasn't in my class. Mia, about 8, looked at me, pointed, and said, "Teacher Tom touched me and tried to take my clothes off." The world stopped. The other kids went silent, and Harris looked at me like I was a monster. "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking. "I never," but she raised her hand. "Tom, to my office." "Now." In her office, Harris called the police. I was in shock, explaining everything, but they wouldn't listen. 2 officers took me to the station. I spent hours there, answering questions, swearing I was innocent. I felt trapped, like my life was crumbling. How could anyone think I'd do something like that? I've always cared for kids, mine and others, with all the love in the world. Luckily, the case didn't take long to resolve. Mia's parents were clear. They'd never seen anything odd from me. I was always respectful and professional. When they questioned Mia, she broke down and confessed that a woman told her to accuse me or she hurt her parents. The police checked the school security cameras and, within a day, found the footage. It was Lisa talking to Mia that same Wednesday morning in a hallway. I saw her on the screen, whispering to the girl, and felt a fury I can't describe. Not only had she abandoned her kids, but she tried to ruin my life to save herself. They released me that night, and the police added witness tampering to Lisa's charges. Rachel was furious when she heard. "Your sister thought she'd get away with it, but this just buries her more," she said. I couldn't believe it. Lisa had crossed a line I never imagined. How could she be so cruel, not just to her kids, but to me, who always helped them? I felt betrayed, but also relieved. Her plan failed, and now she'd face more consequences. The days before the trial were a whirlwind. At preschool, some parents gave me odd looks, though Harris explained I was innocent. I focused on the kids. Emma started talking more, telling me about school. Noah and Sophie played together, and I sometimes saw them laugh for real. Liam asked me to read him stories, and Ava, though still crying for her mom, calmed down when I hugged her. I knew they needed more than my love, and I planned to find a child psychologist after the trial. The night before the trial, I sat with Rachel to go over everything. We had the texts, the kids' statements, the police report, the video of Lisa with Mia. "Tom, this is almost impossible to lose," Rachel said. "But it'll be tough. Prepare for what Lisa and Mark will say." I didn't sleep well, thinking about the kids, the future, everything that had happened. It wasn't just about winning the case. It was about giving Emma, Noah, Sophie, Liam, and Ava life where they felt loved and protected. The trial day arrived like a heavy cloud. I barely slept, tossing and turning, thinking about the kids. It had been 3 weeks since Lisa and Mark were arrested at the airport, and today everything would be decided. Rachel said our case was nearly unbeatable, but nerves ate at me. It wasn't just about winning. It was about the kids, giving them a life where they didn't feel abandoned. I got up at 5 a.m., made coffee, and cooked pancakes for the kids. Emma, always attentive, helped Ava with her plate, but looked at me with worried eyes. "Today's the big day, Uncle." I nodded. "Yeah, little one. Everything's going to be okay." She didn't reply, just looked down. I left the kids with Maria and went to the courthouse with Rachel. The place was packed, the air thick with tension. When I entered the courtroom, I saw Lisa and Mark sitting with their lawyer, a young guy who looked out of place. Lisa shot me a glare full of rage, like I was a villain. Mark didn't even look at me, head down. I sat next to Rachel, clenching my fist to stay calm. The judge, an older man with a deep voice, entered and called for silence. Rachel stood and began our case with a confidence that impressed me. She started with Lisa's text telling me to watch the kids because I loved them so much. Each word on the screen felt like a hammer blow. Then she presented the travel itinerary, proving Lisa and Mark went to New York, leaving their kids alone at the airport. "This wasn't a mistake," Rachel said, looking at the jury. "It was planned abandonment, and Mr. Tom was deceived into funding their trip with $10,000 of his savings. Clara, the CPS social worker, took the stand. With a clear voice, she shared what the kids had told her in interviews. She explained how Emma, at 10, looked for food in the kitchen when her mom forgot breakfast. Sometimes there was nothing, Clara quoted Emma. She then spoke about Noah, who said Mark left him alone at home for hours, claiming he was going to the store. The jury listened silently, some taking notes, others with looks of disbelief. Clara concluded that the kids showed signs of emotional and physical neglect and that I'd been their only stable support. The hardest moment was when Emma took the stand. Rachel had worked with CPS to make it brief and low pressure, but I still felt a knot in my chest. Emma, with her hair tied back and a trembling voice, looked at the judge and said, "Mom sometimes didn't give us food before school. I looked for something for my brothers, but there wasn't always food." She paused, struggling to continue, and added, "At the airport, she left us alone and said Uncle Tom would take care of us." The jury seemed moved. One woman wiped her eyes, and even the judge looked down for a moment. Lisa, at the defense table, squirmed uncomfortably but said nothing. Rachel wasn't done. She showed the video of Lisa talking to Mia, the girl who falsely accused me at preschool. The video played on a big screen, and everyone saw Lisa whispering to Mia in the school hallway. Rachel explained that Lisa tried to manipulate a minor to tarnish my reputation and delay the trial. "This isn't just neglect," she said to the jury. "It's a deliberate attempt to obstruct justice." Lisa and Mark's lawyer tried to object, saying the video proved nothing, but the judge silenced him with a gesture. The room murmured, and I saw Lisa sink in her chair, knowing she was caught. The defense was a mess. Lisa and Mark's lawyer took the stand, stuttering, and tried to paint the abandonment as a misunderstanding. He said they trusted me to care for the kids, that there was no intent to abandon them. Rachel tore him apart in cross-examination. She showed more texts where Lisa and Mark called the kids a burden and me a traitor for reporting them. Then she asked, "How do you explain leaving 5 children, including a 3-year-old, alone in an airport with no food or supervision?" The lawyer mumbled something about family trust, but no one bought it. The jury looked bored, and the judge tapped his fingers impatiently. The judge called a 1-hour recess. Rachel and I stepped outside for air. "Tom, this is practically one," she said, patting my shoulder. "The jury's on our side, and the defense has nothing." But I couldn't relax. I was thinking about the kids, the pain they carried. When we returned, the judge delivered the verdict. He found Lisa and Mark guilty of child abandonment, neglect, and abuse. Mark got 5 years in prison. Lisa, for the Mia incident, had witness tampering added, totaling 10 years. Lisa let out a choked sob, covering her face. Mark sat motionless, like he couldn't believe it. The judge looked at me and asked if I'd accept custody of the kids. "Yes, sir," I said firmly. They also promised financial aid to support them, which lifted a weight off me. I left the courthouse with Rachel, feeling a bone-deep exhaustion. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. My family was shattered, and the kids would bear the consequences for life. When I got home, the kids were in the living room watching a movie with Maria. They ran to hug me, but their little faces weren't happy. Emma, always the sharpest, asked, "What happened, Uncle?" I smiled as best I could. "You're staying with me. Guys, everything's going to be okay." But they didn't smile. Ava clung to my leg, and Liam stared at the floor. Noah and Sophie sat on the couch, silent. That night, as we ate mac and cheese, I noticed they barely spoke. Liam played with his fork, and Ava stared at her plate without eating. Emma tried to cheer up the little ones, but looked exhausted. It broke my heart to see them like this. They'd been through abandonment, a trial, the loss of their parents. I couldn't pretend everything was fine just because they were with me now. I knew they needed real help more than my love and home-cooked meals. As I tucked them in, I thought about what Clara said about trauma. I decided the first thing I'd do tomorrow was find a child psychologist. They needed to talk to someone who could help them let go of the past, heal, and move forward. It wouldn't be easy, but it's what they deserved.